The movie begins in modern-day Scotland, where an adventurous couple steps into a charming local pub. Their attention is immediately drawn to a renowned photograph of the Loch Ness Monster displayed on the wall, and they dismiss it as a fabrication. However, an elderly man in the pub dismisses the photo as a forgery, unraveling a tale beyond the iconic image. Intrigued, the couple joins the old man at his table, settling in for a story that unfolds in 1942 during World War II. Amidst the war, a young boy named Angus McMorrow daydreams about the waters of Loch Ness, envisioning himself wading through its depths. Yet, his fantasies take a dark turn as he imagines drowning. In reality, Angus avoids the water, collecting shells along the shoreline. His father, a sailor in the Royal Navy, once described the pool as a peculiar enchanted place beneath the surface. One day, Angus stumbles upon a large, peculiar egg in the sand. Ignoring his mother Anne's call to return home, Angus decides to take the mysterious egg to his father's garden shed. As he hides it, he reflects on his father's absence and crosses off another day on a makeshift calendar. Cleaning the egg, Angus unveils its luminous blue coloring just as it begins to stir on its own. That night, Angus is disturbed by a noise outside and discovers the shed door mysteriously ajar. Investigating, he finds that the egg has hatched, revealing a peculiar alien-like creature. Wanting to care for the creature, Angus feeds it with a potato, earning its trust. Noticing a wound on the creature, Angus tends to it by applying a bandage. Meanwhile, Angus's mother, Anne, gives him a call and swiftly departs from the scene. The following morning, Angus wakes to the sight of a procession of military vehicles rolling in, sparking hope that his father has finally returned. Excitement fills the air as Angus, his mother, and his sister rush out to welcome what they believe is his father's return. However, their optimism is quickly dashed when Captain Thomas Hamilton announces that the Royal Air Force has taken over their manor house for a critical military operation. The soldiers, led by Captain Hamilton, reveal that they are preparing for a potential German invasion, turning the peaceful manor into a strategic base. Disturbed by the intrusion and fearing for his newfound companion's safety, Angus realizes that these trained soldiers could pose a threat to the mysterious creature in the shed. As the soldiers set up camp, Captain Hamilton explains the grave situation, detailing the defense measures against potential German threats. Unsettled, Angus retreats to the shed only to discover that the creature has wreaked havoc in its search for food. Determined to safeguard his father's belongings a bit longer, Angus attempts to secure food for the creature. However, the army cook, Sergeant Strunk, denies him access. Thinking on his feet, Angus grabs a garbage can and drags it to the shed. The creature eagerly dives into the trash, devouring everything in sight. Angus decides to name the creature Crusoe, drawing inspiration from the book Robinson Crusoe. While Crusoe indulges in his feast, Angus delves into researching the mysterious creature's identity, finding none of the possibilities to be conclusive. Recalling his father's tales of a mythical monster in the loch, Angus makes a connection. The creature, resembling a fish, appears to be dehydrated. In a bid to revive it, Angus pours a bucket of water into a trash can. Meanwhile, on the loch, a pair of fishermen catches lunch, oblivious to the military preparations. Captain Hamilton explains the office's mission to defend against German U-boats, adding a layer of tension to the unfolding events. While exploring the estate, Angus discovers Sergeant Walker, holding a lifeless deer, raising concerns about the soldier's threat to Crusoe. Sensing danger, he rushes to the shed. Anne, his mother, finds the shed in disarray, reflecting on her husband. Lewis, the handyman, arrives, and Anne confides in him about her suspicion of Angus harboring a forbidden pet. Angus, witnessing Crusoe missing, confronts Lewis, leading to an altercation over his father's workshop. Despite Angus's pleas, Lewis insists on claiming authority over the workshop. Later that night, Angus searches for Crusoe, unaware of the creature's growing size. Inside the manor, Crusoe accidentally encounters Churchill, causing chaos and blaming the military. Kirsty's scream leads Angus to find Crusoe in a bathtub, and he extracts a promise from Kirsty to keep it secret. Unaware, Anne asks Lewis to check the bathroom, revealing her husband's presumed demise. Angus and Kirsty struggle to contain Crusoe. Lewis arrives to fix the bathroom, defying Angus's instructions. Kirsty allows Lewis entry, and he identifies Crusoe as a water horse from Celtic folklore. Anne becomes suspicious, but Angus seeks Lewis' help, and they distract her, convincing her the bathroom issue is resolved. Despite Anne's suspicions, she exits the bathroom to find it mysteriously empty. Lewis aids in the deception, hiding the water horse in the toilet. Still skeptical but persuaded, Anne encounters Captain Hamilton downstairs, who invites her to a meal in gratitude. She agrees, and Lewis advises moving the water horse to the loch, but Angus refuses, claiming Crusoe as his own. On the night of the meal, Anne dresses up, and Angus feeds the water horse in the bathroom. Kirsty interrupts, urging Angus downstairs. As he rushes out, his makeshift sign causes the water horse to fall into the kitchen. Downstairs, the military and house staff celebrate together, but Churchill, the dog, detects something amiss and rushes to investigate. Angus and Kirsty discover the commotion just as they realize the dog is missing. Upstairs, the water horse roams the hallways, encountering Churchill without a leash. The ensuing chase leads to chaos, culminating in the hunting room, where Crusoe is surrounded by mounted and deceased animals, horrified by the sight. Amidst the military meal, Angus and Kirsty are drawn to the cacophony of smashing and crashing sounds echoing through the house. Captain Hamilton and Anne also become aware of the chaos unfolding, with the reverberating noises reaching every corner. The chase finally erupts into the banquet hall, where Churchill careens recklessly across the table, leaving chaos in his wake. Crusoe, however, manages to slip away unnoticed. Lewis offers an apology to Anne and the military, claiming he was attempting to catch the unruly dog. Unimpressed, Captain Hamilton expresses his dissatisfaction, but Lewis, defiant, refuses to take orders from him. Instead, he orders Hamilton to take Angus to his room, a command Hamilton reluctantly accepts. Outside, Crusoe cleverly disguises himself as a statue, fooling the pursuing dog. Discovering a pond teeming with fish, Crusoe dives in, indulging in a feast. Lewis intercepts him, striking a deal. If Crusoe returns to his room, Lewis promises to find the water horse. Reluctantly, Crusoe complies with Lewis' instructions. As morning breaks, Lewis discovers Crusoe significantly larger in the pond. Bringing Angus to witness the transformation, Lewis and Angus embark on a journey to the loch, sending the water horse back to its natural habitat. Meanwhile, Captain Hamilton, waiting in the shed, sternly warns Lewis to stay away from Angus, considering him a bad influence. Out on the water, two unsuspecting fishermen accidentally hook Crusoe, finding their tiny boat being dragged along. Reluctantly, they cut the line to save their vessel. Taking Angus under his wing, Captain Hamilton, determined to mold him into a disciplined soldier, subjects him to rigorous training. After days of oppressive military life, Angus breaks free and escapes, returning to the lake. There, he reunites with a fully grown Crusoe, joyously welcoming him. Crusoe invites Angus to ride on his back, symbolizing a newfound alliance and freedom from the constraints of military discipline. Despite Angus's initial fear of water, he overcomes it during a swim with the water horse, shedding his apprehension. Their peaceful return is interrupted by a submarine trap. During a walk, Churchill breaks free, and Angus persuades Crusoe to hide from Sergeant Strunk. Later, Angus expresses gratitude to Lewis and Kirsty for bringing joy into his life. Anne catches the sound of their laughter and later expresses gratitude to Lewis for bringing joy to her children's lives. Captain Hamilton, dismayed to learn Lewis is a war hero, observes the conversation. In a local pub, fishermen eagerly share their sea beast encounter, anticipating tourist interest. The next day, fishermen arrive at the loch with a camera. Captain Hamilton takes Anne and the children to watch cannons firing into the loch. Angus warns his mother about the creature, but she dismisses him. Despite Kirsty's support, the cannons are fired, narrowly missing Crusoe. Angered by Angus's interruption, Captain Hamilton reprimands him, insisting that discipline is needed. The family is sent home, and Angus realizes that the creature may never resurface after the bombardment. Distraught by the situation, the fishermen decide to stage a fake photo of the Loch Ness Monster, similar to the famous surgeon's photo, hoping to attract attention. For a month, Angus is confined to his room every evening at 6, forbidden to leave. When he sees the fake photo in the newspaper, Sergeant Strunk reveals that it exactly matches what he witnessed on the loch. Sergeant Walker eagerly vows to hunt for the creature. Kirsty, with Lewis' assistance, stealthily liberates Angus from his room prison. Together, they head to the lake, where Angus calls out for Crusoe. The water horse rises angrily, roaring and biting at Angus despite his attempts to reconnect with his friend. Haunted by the bombardment and a near-death encounter, Crusoe nearly bites off Angus's hand before vanishing into the water. Churchill, having sensed Crusoe, leads the military to the lake. Armed with harpoons, the soldiers take to the water, only to face an unexpected and gruesome confrontation. Crusoe kills Churchill, surprising the soldiers. In the chaos, one of them calls in an SOS. Crusoe blindsides the soldiers, capsizing their boat. Captain Hamilton apologizes to Anne but is interrupted by the SOS call, believing the Germans are attacking. Hamilton orders Anne and the children to the basement, discovering that Angus is at the loch. Against Hamilton's orders, he prepares to rescue him. At the loch, Crusoe terrorizes and nearly kills the soldiers as Angus attempts to intervene. Wading into the water, Angus slips on a rock, falling unconscious. Crusoe dives under, grabbing him and saving his life. On the shore, Lewis tries to revive Angus while Hamilton drives Anne to the loch, instructing his men to fire at will if they see any movement in the water. Unconscious, Angus recalls a final interaction with his father, urging him to be strong and sure. Angus gasps back to life, delighted to reunite with his old friend, now much less aggressive. Crusoe disappears into the water as Anne and Hamilton arrive. Angus and the soldiers attempt to explain the events, but it becomes clear that nobody believes them. Anne accuses Lewis of filling her children's heads with nonsense, asserting there are no monsters or magic, only war and death. However, as she turns to leave, she witnesses the colossal creature, proving her wrong most unexpectedly. Angus adamantly insists that the water horse is peaceful, but the moment is shattered by another cannon blast. Desperate to save Crusoe, Angus jumps onto the water horse's back, hoping to shield him from the relentless assault. His terrified mother is forced to watch as the cannons rain down, and Hamilton, Anne, and Lewis rush to the underwater net. As the soldiers continue their violent onslaught, Angus guides Crusoe through the barrage of cannon fire. The stormy weather obscures their view, leading the soldiers to mistake Crusoe's neck for a submarine periscope. Realizing the danger, Angus understands they must go underwater. Despite their best efforts, they barely make it to the net, where the soldiers, still believing it's a German U-boat, begin raising it to capture the perceived threat. Hamilton and Lewis arrive, urging Angus to let his friend go. Reluctantly, Angus releases the best friend he ever had and returns to his family. Crusoe dives beneath the water, triumphantly jumping into the net, bringing the military equipment down in the process. Crusoe disappears into the distance. The next day, Anne and Crusoe watch the sunrise over the loch. Angus finally comes to terms with the reality that his father isn't coming home, and the group reunites to witness the water horse swimming off to freedom. The water horse lets out a final roar and dives under the water for the last time. In the modern day, the old man reveals that some have claimed to see the water horse over the passing years, but Angus never sees it again. The tourists leave the pub satisfied with the story, and outside, a young concerned mother searches for her son, William. He spots a large, unusual-looking rock that resembles the egg Angus found, suggesting that Crusoe has died and left behind a descendant who will become the next water horse.